Good afternoon to you all. I am American Social Democracy. And before I get started, let me just start off by saying that, to encourage each and every one of you to subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell so we're all kept up to date with what I have to say. But in a way, this channel is not really going to be all about me. To borrow the slogan from the Bernie Sanders 2020 campaign, not me, us. And us would be the online left, which I consider myself a part of, but I'm very small potatoes right now. I may remain small potatoes, who knows? But again, it's not about me, it's about us. All American Socialists, a left wing YouTube commentator that I've been keeping up with for probably the last, I'm going to say, last maybe 5 or 6 months. Always come up with interesting commentaries. One of my favorites that I listen to. Anyway, he came up with a terrific idea. And big tech, or social media, in a subtle and not so subtle way, attacks the online left. It's done through algorithms discrimination. I mean, or they demonetize, or they shadow ban, or they actually shut down some channels, or a combination thereof. And pretty much, I would say, probably a combination of all those things that's happening to left wing channels. See, when YouTube first came into being in almost 20 years ago, and this was during the time in the 1990s until maybe about 2005, 2006, when right wing talk radio dominated. I mean, they dominated the conversation always, the narrative. Liberals, even the most tepid, wimpy, sellout liberals, could hardly get anything done because right wing talk radio was so. They were so dynamic on how to reach out to people to create grassroots opposition when their these radio talk show hosts, they're all corporately backed, but they found a way on, like Rush Limbaugh started this whole mess. I mean, there was always right wing talk radio, but Rush Limbaugh made it big in the late 80s, early 90s, and then all these other people came into the fold, and they have found a way. They're all you basically bought and paid for by big right wing think tanks and things like that, um, business interests and advertisers, and they have always been able to control the political landscape, the Overton window in this country, and it kept this country uh, on the right wing side of the political spectrum. So what I mean, like for example, you take, for example, the Hillary Clinton healthcare in 1994, just like the Affordable Care Act by Barack Obama. It was a terrible hybrid plan that kept private health insurance, which is the main cause of medical inflation in this country. Now, it was a bad plan, but the plan that Hillary Clinton had was not as bad as the right wing made it out to be. But they managed to con people into thinking, oh, this is socialized medicine. We don't want socialized medicine. And the only thing that's going to save this country is socialized medicine. But anyway, I mean, they managed to not only defeat the Hillary Clinton healthcare plan, which the defeat of the Hillary Clinton healthcare plan was bad in a way because that plan did at least have one good option, which was to allow each, if they didn't like that plan that Hillary Clinton laid out, it gave each state the autonomy to create their own statewide Medicare for all single payer system. So in a lot of ways, Hillary Care was actually better than Obamacare, which is really weird because I despise Hillary. I hope a lot more than Barack Obama. But anyway, Hillary Clinton is the pits. But that's beside the point. The health care plan, even with a Democratic majority in both houses, they managed to put a stop to this health care plan through grassroots pressure. And then all of a sudden, it was a right wing tidal wave in 1994, when the Republicans took over both houses of Congress, and the Democrats became bigger wusses afterwards, and ran for cover nonstop, and were wishy-washy and play patty cake and try to play nice with Republicans, and Republicans still kick them when they're down and push them around and bully them around, and call them socialists anyway, in spite of the Democratic Party getting further and further to the right. So the actual left were in frustrated, and we're just like, what the fuck? I mean, um, I became radicalized toward the left when I saw that the Democratic Party were basically the second fiddler to the Republican Party, just as CNN is the second fiddler to Fox these days. But the point I'm trying to make is that the right wing talk radio were so toxic, but unfortunately very successful in what they did. And so the left were constantly being defeated because of the influence of right wing talk radio. Well, by the early 2000s, when YouTube came out, right wing radio still is remain popular, still kind of popular today. But when YouTube came out, this was an opportunity for the left to get their voices across to counter right wing talk radio. Although I'm not a fan of the Young Turks in the year 2021, uh, I when I first heard of the Young Turks, it was around 2008. I became a big fan, and I've been a big fan of theirs until the election of 2016, when they started to suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, where they went to a point of no return. Same thing with MSNBC. They just they were kind of decent. Of course, MSNBC kind of wavered back and forth between being a corporate Democrat or being grassroots left wing Democrats, and that's how they sort of operated. Well, they're kind of swung back into being corporate Democrats again after the 2016 election. And so, anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the Young Turks actually kind of paved way for the online left. And so, you have a lot of channels today that's actually been able to let people know that things like socialism ain't a dirty word. It's not what people think it is. It isn't. It isn't gulags and re-education camps, and it isn't you know military parade of goose stepping soldiers with these rocket launchers, and these Soviet bureaucrats at the what you call it, the Red Square back in the 1970s, 1980s, when I used to see that all the time. It isn't. It isn't the authoritarianism that they painted out. It's not the killing fields or anything. And contrary to what right wing people say, National Socialism is not socialism either. And in that regard, what Hitler did in the 19 after World War I in the 1920s, adopted the name National Socialism to go and try to sound populist. We know of a certain right of center person that was the president in the last 4 years that used populism, that sounded almost lefty at times, but was a very right wing, not right wing as Hitler per se, but I would say Mussolini light. We know that person that was there's a thing called derangement syndrome that's associated with this person with orange skin and a comb over. But I digress. Anyway, I'm getting long-winded. I need to get back to what I need to talk about. All American Socialists came up with this idea, and I got the link down below for All American Socialists. Please subscribe to All American Socialists and hit that notification bell. And I got the link what he talks about, which is called Progressive YouTube Channels of All Sizes, and basically working together to try to put a stop to this online discrimination that takes place. Now, there's a little bit of history to that, and that history is basically David Packman, Kyle Kalinske, Jimmy Dore, Amazing Atheist, Jamal Thomas, Nico House, Combo Couch, Tim Black, etc., 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 were in the last few years demonetized, and they had to go find alternative ways to go and make money. And this was a pretty nasty thing done by big tech, and it's actually another form of censorship. But the mainstream narrative is that Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder, they're being attacked by media. They're trying to ban them, when that's what Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro claim. But the actual truth is that the big tech hates the left wing channels more than they do the right wing channels, because the right wing channels defend corporations. The right wing channels hate unions. The right wing channels support the military industrial complex and support foreign policy neoconservatism. Now, there are exceptions like Alex Jones, because Alex Jones occasionally was correct about the surveillance state and what our government was doing against Occupy Wall Street. I'll give him credit. He did defend Occupy Wall Street. He's wrong on a lot of shit, but I mean, he, in that regard, he's a little bit better than the other right wing talk show. He had his channel taken off because, again, um, some of his content actually challenged the power structure too. But I want to get back to this free speech issue, because I'm a free speech absolutist, and the thing about it is that this is a free speech issue. What's going on against the online left, and we need to, on free speech grounds, get the left back into supporting free speech again. Now, as I said, all American Socialists pretty much discussed this, and what I am going to do, even though I did put the link below, what I am going to do is I am going to play you an excerpt from All American Socialists, and you'll see what he's getting at, and I will elaborate further myself. Hold tight.
Okay, comrades, I'm going to see if I can do 3 videos in 15 minutes. Wish me luck. Now, the first video is going to be a shout out. It's going to be a shout out to 11 different channels that I like, that I think are undersized, some of which I interact with personally on a more personal level, at least direct messages and private messages and things like that. These are folks who I think would be willing, and who I think have, matter of fact, who I know have floated the idea of forming some sort of progressive association for content creators, some sort of rank and file committee, perhaps, some sort of union, if you will, to at least negotiate certain conditions, or to at least coordinate certain messaging, certain counter messaging. Be a great idea. You'd obviously have email lists and things like that. You'd have to have meetings here and there. I get it. But a lot of these folks have been floating these ideas. They're cooking up some of their own, and I like it. I like what I'm seeing. Just remember what I said after the 2020 primary. The biggest disadvantage that progressives have, and that's social democrats and democratic socialists. So if you're in the social democratic caucus or the democratic socialists, and folks to their left, of course. So my camp, the libertarian socialists, if that's to the left, democratic socialists, but anarchist, communists. What are we really missing? We have no media. The right wing dominates the radio. Centrist, capitalists, and Fox, of course, which is very right wing, dominate cable news. So we have to formulate a presence or at least a unified front. Now,
Okay. That's an excerpt, and as I said, you can actually watch the whole video. And I got the link below. So just as I said, give him a shout out, All American Socialist. Be sure to subscribe to his channel and so yeah, and support him. And I want to take this opportunity to thank him for actually giving me a little bit of a positive thumbs up on my channel. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope that his suggestion, and it was a seed planted in my head about forming a labor union. And I like the idea of a labor union. I used to work in a unionized job, and I got laid off my unionized job about 3 years ago. Frankly, I miss working at a unionized job, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I need to have a unionized job again. Now, I mean, I'm not like finding to be terribly off. I mean, COVID actually ended up making a little more money than usual, and so I'm thinking, I pay my bill. I got enough to pay my bills and to eat and to exist and to put money away and things like that. I'm not like poverty heavy. My complaints is I pay a little more for my insurance and get covered less. That part sucks, but anyway, I like the idea of belonging to a labor union again, and I'm. It doesn't have to be the IWW, but I'm using IWW as an example because even though my name is American Social Democracy, I've gotten a little more radical since got a little more radical in the last couple of years. And what I mean by that is that, I mean, I used to believe socialism meant we had a few more unionized jobs, we get Medicare for all, and kind of look kind of like Canada, and we'd be there. And I would love for the United States to turn into Canada right now with regard to more unions. I don't know how many unions they have, but their unions are stronger than ours. And having single payer Medicare for all, that'll be, and the fact that Canada doesn't have the death penalty and Canada doesn't get involved with wars abroad. Canada's a nice country. It isn't a socialist country. In fact, is some ways it's just as capitalist as the United States, but it has a conscience. It has a conscience, and that conscience in Canada is called the New Democratic Party, the NDP. We used to have a conscience in the United States called the Socialist Party of America, but it died in 1972, and hopefully one day it will come back again. We'll talk about that later on. But anyway, he came up with the idea, and as I said, IWW has what is called the Computer and Software Workers. I'm using that as an example of the kind of unions that we can link up with, and the purpose of doing this, and some of the personalities, some of the shows that he mentioned, and as I said, you know, he could use himself, my channel. We could, there's an interesting channel down in North Carolina, a fellow North Carolinian, Andrea Rovansky, I believe her name. Please, if you're listening, I mispronounced your name. I apologize, but she goes by Cyber Demon 531. Check her out. Give her also a subscribe to her, and also get up with her on not just YouTube, yeah, on YouTube, but get up with her on Twitter too. Um, but anyway, the purpose of doing this, getting all of us together, and we're talking about big channels like, as I said, someone like Kyle Kalinske or Jimmy Dore or Tim Black or someone like that, Shoe on Head, just going down the line of who we could talk to, amazing atheists. um, what I'm basically saying, and some of these online left personalities don't like each other. I know that Jimmy Dore and Sam Cedar, of course, they don't like each other. I know that. I know that there are people out there that, as I said, there are people out there that kind of get under each other's skin and what have you. And everybody's got a type of personality that's not going to be, totally lovable or what have you. I mean, I can be obnoxious in my own way too. So there's that. But you see, we could take on things, but with create leverage. You remember force the vote to try to create leverage? Well, instead of a bunch of silly congressmen, let's try to impose leverage against some of these big tech companies, Silicon Valley people. You know, um, Maybe the kind of leverage is to try to end this algorithm discrimination. TYT went centrist all of a sudden, and they're on the corporate algorithms, and they get a lot of hits. Now, what's another corporate entity is the Hill, but the difference is that the Hill Rising is actually a pretty damn good show. And if you're not familiar with the Hill, go ahead and look up Rising. Crystal Ball, awesome lady. I love her show. Um, Give her. I encourage people to subscribe to Rising. Well, anyway, but the point I'm trying to make is they have a corporate algorithms, and then the rest of us, we're algorithms kind of shadow bans us, and they find ways to make sure that we're not making money for in spite of us producing content. And if some people are troublemakers enough, perceivably, they'll go shut down some channels. My understanding is that the World Socialist website had their channel shut down of recently. I guess they're back up. I'm not sure about them being back up, but I remember they got shut down. Combo Couch got shut down a few times, and they came back up. And the point I'm trying to make is that you know this is something that needs to be addressed. So you need to create leverage to go and pressure online media. Bad press. If they get bad press, they're not going to like that, and we got to go and be loud about it. Um, and monetizing. Making money. We got some of us. This is all we do, and this is how some of us make our money. Some of us have a regular job, and they do this as a hobby or do this to supplement income. And there's nothing wrong with that. Life is expensive. Cost of living is expensive. We need to, we all need a living wage, and why not be paid a living wage to do something you enjoy doing? That's how I view things. I did another video earlier about while I think that the work ethic is not all that's cracked up to be. The way corporate America treats us, I say hard work, fuck hard work until we have actual economic and social justice for the American workforce, and it's going to take class warfare. I love class warfare. So and anyway, hopefully we're lucky enough. Maybe we'll get healthcare coverage because if we're working for online, they're taking advantage of us, and we're producing content to put online. Well, we should get health insurance as a result. Of course, ideally, we would have a Medicare for all system like they have in Canada, or a national health service like they have in Great Britain. That would be ideal too. And a retirement, a pension. See, I'm just thinking like an old school union guy. What needs to be done, and that's what needs to be done. And so, if some of these online left wing people are listening, hey, let's network together and let's get a labor union involved. Yeah, let's get a labor union involved. We can probably create some good press, and most of us that I mentioned, most of the people I mentioned, just like myself, we're all on the free speech side of the left. Uh, uh, we're not like some section of the left that are in the censor mode these days. And ironically, a lot of these so-called leftists that are on censorship are actually to our right. And the actual right wing who claims to be for free speech really are not. So this is also a chance to let the broader American public know that we're not a bunch of authoritarians. That what we advocate is actually enhances more freedom for individuals around. And that's the public relations thing that we have to work on. So anyway, I also want to mention that if we can do this and be diligent about it and urge people, our friends who may subscribe to us, and tell them, hey, you got some good ideas. Why don't you do an online channel? And why don't you do an online channel? You do an online channel. So, I'm that's my opportunity to let you know, encourage your friends to do this and create a movement out there, and so we can reach out to people and we can change their perspectives, and they can and we can move the Overton window, the political Overton window, from the distorted right leaning that it has right now, and shift that Overton window back toward the left. Of course, when I'm looking at the computer screen, I'm doing the left over here. It's going to translate as right. So you know what I mean. We need to go and shift the Overton window back toward the left. That's what we need to do in this country to restore common sense into the national dialogue. Um, Basically, uh, bring back the old New Deal consensus, but put it more teeth into it, make it stronger than it was the first time round, and that way we'll get things like health care for all, a living wage job for everybody. We'll have economic justice, and when life when people's incomes and standards of living rise up, we become a nicer society. We can become a more tolerant society. I will argue I will be a less racist society. We will be a good society, or in its literal meaning of the term, we could become the great society that LBJ sort of talked about in the 1960s. But we can have that for real, of course, without the Vietnam War. You know. But anyhow, just thoughts I have in my mind right now. So, and I know it's a little long winded, but that's just how I am. I'm trying to work on it. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree with me, that's okay. Comment anyway. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to go and create your own platform to utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. Feel free to share the content on this channel. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button, that notification bell. And until next time, I am American Social Democracy. Peace. Class struggle yesterday, class struggle today, class struggle tomorrow, and class struggle until we have full economic and social justice for all.